Hello there, Bob. You young roister-doister, you. You look a likely sort of lad for tricks and sports and all sorts of jolly rosy-cheeked caperings, eh? Of course you do.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Blackadder podcast, where we're more roister than doister, I think.
Oh, I'm doister. What are you talking about?
Inane ramblings from Lord Percy there. Enjoy it?
I did. I like Percy.
He's good. How are you, Ian?
I'm very well, Gerry. How are you?
Brilliant.
Great.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Yeah. It's always good to go off on a positive note.
There's no other way.
Well, it is. We've listened to you on other podcasts complaining about your health.
Yeah, that's true.
State of mind.
The reality is, actually, I'm very hungover at the moment.
Oh, it's unfortunate.
I know. But the professional that I am, put a brave face on.
Why not? People can't see your brave face.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
So, episode 1, bells.
Yes, we should maybe tell people why we're starting on Blackadder II.
Well, what they should do, is if they're unsure, is listen to the introductory episode 00 of the Blackadder podcast, and that will fill you in. But yes, a brief summary.
Yeah, basically Blackadder II is when the show becomes what it continues to be for the rest of its run, so we thought it was a more sensible place to start with the podcast.
Yeah, we'll circle back round at the end to the first season, but we're starting here so as not to give anyone the wrong impression if they've not seen the show before.
Absolutely.
You fancy setting the scene? Give us an elevator pitch for Blackadder 2. Who's the main players?
It's set in the Elizabethan era with Queen Elizabeth, or Queenie as she's known in this, her wet nurse, Nursey, and her counsel Melchett, along with Edmund Blackadder, who is a descendant of one of the characters from a previous series, his servant Baldrick, similarly descended, Lord Percy, who you heard in the opening clip there, and an assorted group of guest appearances.
Yeah, Blackadder in this season is, he's part of the aristocracy, mid-level I would say.
Certainly with access to the Queen, and apparently a favourite of the Queen.
Yes, but with that favouritism or that access we come to see throughout the season, there's a certain amount of risk involved as well, being so close to someone who's quite obviously, if I was being kind, temperamental, or unkind, clearly mad.
Yes.
And mad, bad and dangerous to know.
Strong and unstable, you might say.
You might. So Melchett also has the ear to...
Yeah, well, in real life, Elizabeth I was known for taking counsel from advisors, more so than perhaps, certainly than her father and some of the other monarchs of the era.
And we have Percy, who is on an equal footing with, perhaps not intellectually, but an equal footing socially with Blackadder.
Yes, although he maybe is a bit needy.
Very needy.
I think he wants Blackadder's approval. It's quite sad sometimes. I think when you compare him to someone like Baldrick, who doesn't care what Blackadder thinks about him, you see Percy a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, I think Baldrick isn't smart enough to want to care.
Sure.
He knows his position, and he knows he's no chance of improving upon that. Enough general chat, Ian. Do you want to begin this week's episode?
Why not?
Do you have a summary prepared?
We do. We do have a summary.
Commence.
The first episode is titled Bells, and in this we are introduced to Lord Edmund Blackadder, as we've just briefly discussed, his servant Baldrick, and they live in London in Elizabethan times. They meet a girl called Kate, who is pretending to be a boy called Bob. She's in town to earn her fortune and support her elderly father. And after persuading Blackadder to hire her as a servant, or him, if we take it on her pretense, in place of Baldrick, the pair spend much time together, enjoying one another's company. And when Blackadder realises he's beginning to have romantic feelings for Bob, he consults a homophobic doctor and a fabled wise woman without much success. Resolving to terminate Bob's employment, he is pleased to learn the secret she's been hiding all along. With the pair set to marry, Blackadder invites his old friend, Lord Flashheart, to act as best man at the ceremony. And when he makes a grand entrance, it seems all is well. But a happy ending might not be on the cards for Edmund.
Thank you, Ian. We get our first introduction to the theme tune this week.
We do. We get the opening credits with the snake slithering across the chessboard, which is also a spoof of the I, Claudius credits.
We hear strings and woodwind, which then transform into an electric guitar.
And meanwhile, the snake is acting up. It won't do what it's told, and it's having to be corrected, and eventually it's replaced by a set of bells.
A simple house, a poverty-stricken house,
you might say,
is where we begin. An old man. He's mumbling, he rocks back and forth, and his perceptive daughter works out that he's not completely happy.
Yes, she's also paid great attention to her father, who is ranting and raving a little bit, but when she surmises that he's upset because of her mother's death, he proves himself to be quite lucid after all.
Yes, he angrily tells her, not for the first time, that she isn't dead, but in fact living with her Uncle Henry in Droitwich.
That's right. She then pushes him further to try and get more information, and he explains that they are now so poor he can't support them at all.
But, Father, surely...
Yes, Kate. I want you to become a prostitute.
Father!
Do you defy me?
Well, indeed I do. For it is better to die poor than to live in shame and ignominy.
No, it isn't.
I'm young and strong and clever. My nose is pretty. I shall find another way to earn us a living.
Oh, please go on the game. It's a steady job. And you'd be working from home.
Goodbye, Father. I shall go to London, disguise myself as a boy, and seek my fortune.
Well, why walk all the way to London when you can make a fortune lying on your back?
Apparently, Ben Elton, who's one of the writers, plagiarised some of the material for this scene from a student play that he wrote for the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Can you plagiarise from yourself?
I think it's a figure of speech.
Okay. A very funny scene.
Enjoyable.
Over to Blackadder's house for the first time, and he's practising his archery with Baldrick holding up the target as Lord Percy arrives for his practice.
Yeah, I think Percy's name is Percy, isn't it?
It is Lord Percy. He's treated with utter contempt by Blackadder.
He is a bit snivelling, isn't he?
Very snivelling. As he is about to take a few shots, he says he would like to see the Spaniard who can make his way past him. What does Blackadder advise?
There's lots of them in Spain.
He should go there, there's millions of them.
We might talk about later on how the first two episodes in this series were originally intended to be the other way around. But I know that this scene was the first one written and the first one shot, so this is you kind of getting to know these characters a little bit. Blackadder
quickly deduces that Percy is having woman trouble, and after a couple of quick kicks to the nether region...
Yes, well, Percy says he won't reveal it, even under torture, and it doesn't take very much to break him.
Blackadder's amused at his apparent love of Jane. Bury me in a Y-shaped coffin, Harrington.
Percy is shocked at this revelation, and I think partly because he wants Blackadder's approval, resolves that relationship is not going to be taking place any longer.
Blackadder then puts him off his shot by telling him that he will go over her, just like he did.
And Baldrick did. Yeah, he explains that Jane has a thing for men in beards. They all have beards at this point, so Percy's off to shave.
But before he does, he fires off a shot which Baldrick takes, but fortunately not in the body.
No. It was fortuitously stopped.
By what?
His willy. Now, when he says that, I didn't know if it was going to be a play on words. Is he going to have something, a possession that he calls that?
Yeah,
but no, he doesn't.
No, it's just stupid.
Yes. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, and Blackadder, I think, says, oh, well, it can now be known as your Lucky Willie.
Yes. He says he's going to show his grandkids.
Blackadder is doubtful whether or not grandchildren will be a possibility.
Not any longer. It's interesting at this point, because Percy's gone and Blackadder seems to show maybe a little sympathy towards him.
In what way?
Like comments that you wouldn't catch him falling in love. Because he's obviously aware that it's something that Percy's struggling with.
But just then, there's someone at the door.
There is.
Kate arrives.
Well, yeah, Kate's the girl from the opening scene.
Yes, but she's dressed as a lad. She's calling herself Bob.
Well,
now,
she's not quite calling herself Bob yet, is she? She introduces herself as Kate.
true. So Blackadder hears her voice before seeing her and is immediately attracted to this person. He turns round and then is, quite surprised, as you would be, to see someone who is not obviously trying to appear to be feminine.
No, it's a boy, as he puts it. It's very reminiscent of the plot from Twelfth Night, the Shakespeare play, isn't it?
Are you trying to usurp my trivia at the end of the...
No, I'm just observing the fact that the woman dressed as a man becoming a servant.
Yeah, very good.
Also, obviously, Shakespeare was not born for a few years after this.
If indeed he was at all.
Well, that's another debate altogether, isn't it?
Yes, she claims that her name is Kate, and when pushed, she says, yeah, it's short for Bob.
Yeah, she's looking for servant work, and she's heard that Blackadder has the worst servant in London.
Clearly attracted to her, Blackadder immediately fires Baldrick.
Yes, Baldrick's a little bit upset, actually, because he's been working for Blackadder since he was 2.5.
Mm-hmm. And Blackadder claims that must be why he's utterly sick of the sight of him.
He offers to stay and do the same job, but for no wages.
So Blackadder says, well, okay, but you'll have to work harder and live in the gutter. Baldrick thinks that's a fair enough deal.
Seems a compromise that you can live with.
Percy then returns with that ridiculous intro that we heard at the top of the podcast.
His beard's gone.
Yep. But he is treated with the contempt that he deserves by Bob.
Well, yes, he is. That's after Blackadder's left the room. When he first comes in, Blackadder describes him as a dimwit he's not able to shake off. And then after Blackadder leaves, Bob tells him to get lost, you creep.
He likes this. He thinks that he has balls.
It shows that Bob has balls.
Yeah.
And you get this sort of fourth wall shattering look to the camera.
But we should mention that before Blackadder leaves, she goes over to him and there's an obvious chemistry and attraction between them, and he has to leave for the lavatory.
Yes. She initially ignores Percy's comments.
Yeah.
To basically just talk to Blackadder further, and then after he leaves, Percy perseveres.
Mm-hmm. We should also note that Percy mentions Mrs. Miggins, and she becomes more important down the line.
Okay. We take our first visit to Queenie's throne room.
Yes, the court of Queen Elizabeth I. And Lord Melchett is unsuccessfully trying to relieve Queenie's boredom as Nursey sits and knits beside her.
It's a very iconic performance, isn't it? The job that Miranda Richardson does with Queenie.
It's fantastic.
I read that she didn't really enjoy doing it because she was taking it so seriously and she had to put so much work into the characterisation. And it's quite interesting because I heard on the commentary for this episode that she was like one of 40 folk auditioned, and
really?
She stood out. They all did the schoolgirl thing, and she had this sort of air of irrationality, which you can see in the performance. It's really good.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But she's not amused at Melchett's
It's
jokes.
a sensational impersonation of Columbus.
What does she say? Who does she think it is, and why did her father used to laugh?
Well, her father used to... Melchett says that her royal father, which is obviously Henry VIII, used to like it. And she's not surprised because her father laughed at those funny folk with the bells. Not jesters. Lepers.
She asks about Blackadder and is told that he has been spending a lot of time with a boy in his service, and she wonders if he would spend more time with her if she was a boy.
Nursey's got a brilliant story about how she almost was a boy.
Tell us about it.
Well, she tells the story that she was born, and it was announced that it's a boy, and everyone's celebrating because obviously the king wanted a male heir. He didn't have one at that point, just had her older sister Mary. And then they realised that the boy didn't have a winkle. And it's a miracle, a boy without a winkle. And they were all giving thanks to God until Sir Thomas More pointed out that a boy without a winkle is a girl. Now, Sir Thomas More, for historical accuracy, would not have been at Elizabeth's birth, given his strong objections to her parents' marriage.
Queenie then states that it is very odd to spend all your time with a servant before we get a romantic montage accompanied by green sleeves.
This is one of the few anachronistic jokes that you get. The writers commented that they try to avoid anachronisms, so you didn't have jokes about watches or that sort of thing. This is one of the few that got in because it's obviously an advert for a CD or a cassette of contemporary songs.
Can you remember some of the songs that were displayed on the screen at this point?
Well, I conveniently wrote a couple of them down.
Let's hear it.
There was Greensleeves, My Love is a Prick on a Tudor Rose, Hot Sex Madrigal in the Middle of My Tights, and a couple of others.
Over to Blackadder's house, and Blackadder and Bob settle down, and it's clear that they have things to discuss.
Well, Bob, we're a couple of fine lads together, aren't we? Let's get ratted and talk about girls, eh? Yes, we could sing some really dirty songs and... Oh, God, I find you curiously pleasant company, young Bob.
I am honoured and for my part want nothing more than to be with you, old man.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more healthy and normal than having a good chum.
What think you, my lord, of love?
You mean rumpy-pumpy?
What would you say, my lord, if I were to say, I love you?
Well, of course, it depends entirely on who you said it to. If you said it to a horse, I'd presume you were sick. If you said it to Baldrick, I'd presume you were blind. And if you said it to me,
Yes, my lord.
Well, I naturally assumed we were having a big lad's joke about back ticklers, the way we healthy fellows often do, and I'd probably grab you for a friendly wrestle, and then we'd probably slap each other's thighs like jolly good chums and laugh at what it would be like if we really did fancy each other.
In that case, my lord, I love you.
And at this point, they wrestle each other to the floor, only to be interrupted by Baldrick thinking that Blackadder was trying to kill her.
He says to Bob not to worry because he tried to kill him too.
He's there because he wants permission to sleep on the roof.
Yes, he's been told that if he stays in the gutter, he's going to get washed away with all the other turds.
We next head over to a doctor's office, and Blackadder tells the doctor about his manservant problem, and after a bit of misunderstanding, the unsympathetic doctor prescribes a course of what?
Leeches. They still use that sort of treatment these days, don't they?
I don't know what doctors you go to.
To draw the poison from the wounds. They put maggots into open wounds to eat the dead flesh.
They don't.
Yeah, they do.
Where?
Hospitals.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
They don't.
They do.
Any doctors listening, let us know.
Okay. It's interesting, although some of these sets are quite small. I mean, the throne room one is tiny. The production values are quite high, and the costumes are really good. It's not comedy setup. They don't look stupid or silly. It's all done really very well, isn't it?
Yeah, they wouldn't look out of place in a BBC drama, period drama.
Absolutely. And I think that's commendable, particularly given the amount of money they wasted in the first season. They also had a smaller budget in season 2.
Well, you can see where the money's been spent this season. It's fairly obvious and it's well spent. I don't think they need a number of different locations and scenes.
Yeah, you can see that they're clearly restricted in the number of places they can go, but they do a very good job with the ones that they have.
So tell us about this doctor. What's his...
Well, he's a raging homophobe.
Clearly.
He sees that Edmund has started fancying boys, and it's all rather disgusting. And naturally, he should be worried. It's not every day that a man wakes up to discover he's a screaming bender with no more right to live on God's clean earth than a weasel. Now, is he suggesting that weasels have no right to live on earth? It seems unreasonable.
He's not a very reasonable man.
He's certainly not.
But it's interesting. I'm no historian, but I think over the course of humanity, there have been different periods in time when homosexuality was more accepted than others.
Sure.
So I'm not sure at what, at this particular point, how it was regarded.
Well, I think there may be some concern, because obviously Blackadder's gone to a doctor about it. Mm-hmm. He's concerned, but he doesn't treat it. You can see a good contrast between how he accepts it's just how he feels, and the doctor saying, "Oh, all this stuff's wrong." Another thing that is very striking in this scene that is very similar to what you get nowadays is the advice on leeches comes from Dr. Hoffman of Stuttgart, the owner of Europe's biggest leech farm.
Now, yes, that has many parallels with...
Doesn't it?
Of course it does, yeah.
People who are conflicted in terms of their interests, perhaps abusing what power they have.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, enough of that.
I don't think... certainly Blackadder takes the treatment, because when Baldrick comes across him, he's eating a leech.
And he offers him a spider, thinking that's just a new diet that he's into.
And when Blackadder rejects that, Baldrick suggests visiting the local wise woman in Putney.
Yes, he doesn't trust this newfangled medicine. Go and speak to the wise woman. Blackadder dismisses this initially, but the next time we see him, he is...
At Putney.
At Dunghill Mansions. And he is met firstly by a young crone who cackles and is told, this is brilliant, is told off by Blackadder for speaking in a ridiculous way.
Also for her grammar.
Yeah, that it be. Yes, it is.
And there's another anachronistic joke here. He talks about not being a tourist, which obviously wouldn't be a thing.
Of course.
And then he taunts her with a bag of money, which he hangs on to.
It's one of my favourite lines. It's one of these lines that stand out from my childhood. I would often say that to people I knew, friends and family. He says, "Here is a purse of monies, which I'm not going to give to you," and walks off.
Before he goes in, he gets 2 pieces of advice about the wise woman from the young crone.
Yeah, firstly, she is a woman.
Yep, and secondly...
she's wise.
Well, he guesses that one. A bit of a stab in the dark.
Which is precisely
what the young crone's going to get.
So, off to see the wise woman.
She greets him rather grandly, doesn't she? "Hail Edmund, Lord of Adders Black."
Again, it's just this...
Well, Shakespearean almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like something out of a Macbeth or something like that. The wise woman suggests that he should sleep with Bob, because when she fancies people, she sleeps with them.
Yes, although she has to drug them first.
On account of the warts and everything, yeah.
However, he is worried about his reputation, and so she has 3 potential plans for him.
Yeah, the first one, kill Bob.
The second is to kill himself.
And the third one will stop everybody else from finding out about this.
Yeah, if we kill them all.
Yes, kill everyone in the world.
He's not happy with that, so returns back to his own house.
He has his own plan.
But he receives some unexpected news himself.
Now look here, Bob. I've got something very important to say to you, and I want you to listen very carefully.
Yes.
Look, Bob, I've decided that you are to leave my service.
Oh, no, my lord. My father will starve and I'll have to become a male prostitute. And besides, I thought we were friends.
Well, we are friends, Bob. Of course, 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 of course. In fact, that's the reason I want you to leave my service and become my live-in chum.
Oh, my lord.
Now, I want to make absolutely clear that I'm in no way interested in the contents of your tights.
You might be, my lord, if you knew what I kept in them.
I flatter myself, Bob, that I know what a gentleman keeps in his tights. Thank you very much.
But, my lord, I have a great secret.
What?
Prepare to be amazed.
Oh, no, you haven't got one of those birthmarks shaped like a banana, have you?
No.
Or a tattoo saying, "Get it here."
No.
Oh, God. You've got one of those belly buttons that sticks outwards, haven't you?
No, my lord.
Well, what can it possibly be? Ah, good Lord.
Her dramatic reveal is rather delayed by the clothing that she's wearing.
Yeah. We cut to 2 minutes later, and they are having an apparent post-coital smoke.
Post-coital's what I've written in my notes as well.
Okay.
That's quite a good joke. I like that bit.
Yes. Whilst Kate explains why she did what she'd done, and Blackadder proposes marriage and says, "Kiss me, Kate."
Anyway, in the throne room, Melchett has bad news for the Queen.
Yes, her former favourite is marrying a girl called Bob.
This leads to another brilliant nursey moment. Queenie remarks it's an unusual name for a girl who are normally named Elizabeth or Mary.
But Nursey claims she had 3 sisters called
Donald, Eric, and Basil.
and Nursey isn't her real name.
No, what is it?
Bernard. I think Queenie says that Bernard, she looks like a Bernard that suits her.
Absolutely. At this point, Blackadder enters the throne room looking for permission to wed.
But Melchett, the sneaky wee devil that he is, tries to throw a spanner in the works. He says that he can't understand how Blackadder could possibly have eyes for anyone other than the Queen.
And she says it's a good point, though slightly grovelly.
Yes. However, Blackadder gets around this by saying that, when I fell in love, I thought she was a boy.
The Queen is prepared to approve so long as the girl's nose isn't prettier than hers. Otherwise, you have to cut it off.
Yeah, it gets quite sinister here. It's an example of the threat of death and violence that Blackadder has to live with.
Yes, irrational death and violence.
It's like, you know, the guy in the pub who's a drunk and can go from being a funny drunk to a violent drunk at any point. And you're always on a knife edge. Literally.
It's wedding day, I believe, next at Blackadder's home, and Kate is dressing Baldrick as a bridesmaid.
She couldn't afford friends, apparently. That's how poor she was. Kate compliments Baldrick on his looks, but Blackadder states that he looks like a dung ball in a dress.
At this point, Percy arrives and he's intrigued by Baldrick. He flirts a little bit and asks for a kiss, which Baldrick is prepared to offer.
Yes, but he is surprised by his original perfume when he's obliged with this kiss, and he's nearly sick when Blackadder informs him who he is.
Percy then starts talking in a much deeper voice for the rest of this scene. He wants to know about the best man, what the arrangements have been for this.
Yes, and he's led on for a moment that it might be him.
It's a little bit cruel, isn't it?
Very cruel. But no, Blackadder wants him to take a letter to his old friend Lord Flashheart.
In Dover.
Yes, the best shot, the best sword, the best sailor, and the best kisser in the kingdom.
That's the man.
It's the reputation, certainly.
We get some really sad music playing as Percy sobs his way out the door. He holds it together just long enough to leave the room and then breaks down on his way out the front door.
Back over to the royal court.
Yes, and Kate wants Edmund to meet her father ahead of the wedding.
He looks around and dismisses a man as a scruffy old beggar until he is informed by Kate that this is in fact his soon-to-be father-in-law.
Yes, and he asks him how much it's going to cost to make him go away.
Kate is distraught, as you would expect, but the old man says, £10, that'll do.
She's upset with both of them at this stage, I think.
Yeah, and Blackadder misreads why she's upset and says, don't worry, Baldrick will beat him up after the service and get the £10 back.
There's no sign of Lord Flashheart yet.
No, the Queen is waiting impatiently, and Melchett is ready to perform the ceremony, but Flashheart has not yet arrived. So she tells him to get another best man, and Percy coughs.
Yeah, and Blackadder taunts Percy a bit more until the Queen steps in and tells him to stop his nonsense.
Yes, he leads him on a few times. He says, well, I suppose I could ask Percy. And Percy's absolutely delighted until Blackadder says, can you think of another best man?
Eventually he does get compelled to ask Percy to do the job.
His joy, however, is short-lived as Flashheart makes a spectacular entrance.
It's me! Flash by name, Flash by nature. Hooray!
Where have you been?
Where haven't I been? Woof! But I'm here now. Who is that?
I don't know, but he's in your place.
Not for long. Thanks, bridesmaid. Like the beard. Gives me something to hang on to. So my old mate Eddie's getting hitched, eh? What's the matter? Can't stand the pace of the in-crowd? Hi, Queenie. You look sexy. But listen, wear your hair long. I prefer it that way.
I've got such a crush on him.
And Melchi! Still worshipping God? Last thing I heard, he started worshipping me! Nursey! I like it, firm and fruity. Am I pleased to see you, or did I just put a canoe in my pocket? Down, boy, down!
Flash finishes off by headbutting Percy before setting eyes on Kate. And what happens?
Well, he seduces her instantly, kisses her, they swap clothes and they leave.
Yes, he says she has a tongue like an electric eel and likes the taste of a man's tonsils.
Yeah, that was one that the writers kind of... The one line of Flash arts that they weren't so happy about on the commentary.
Yeah.
Apparently Rick Mayall said he would only do it if he had the funniest lines. He was funnier than Rowan Atkinson, and his least funny line was funnier than Rowan Atkinson's funniest line.
So he then departs with Kate, and Melchett points out it's now customary for the groom to marry the bridesmaid.
Well, the less said about that, the better.
Baldrick appears to be happy enough with the arrangement,
I think Baldrick's happy enough with every arrangement.
and the credits roll.
During which a bard taunts Edmund with lines like, "To fall in love with boys is weird," and Blackadder, his taste is rather odd. And those were questionable lines. He then says, or sings, Lord Flashheart, I wish you were the star." That would be a terrible show.
Yeah. Flashheart is fantastic in small doses.
Exactly. What did you think? How did it live up to your memory of it? Or have you watched it recently anyway?
No, I can remember, as soon as I started watching it, I can remember line by line. Yeah, just as funny as when I watched it first, decades ago. Loved it. Thought it was brilliant. Genius.
It's a strong episode, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there are, as you say, questionable laughs in there. Some of the, perhaps, I mean, I don't want to be, I don't want to criticise it and say it was homophobic. It's not.
There's not much of it. I think for the most part it stands up okay.
Yeah, I mean, like the Doctor, for example, I think he's meant to be a horrible creature, so his lines are, the star Blackadder is quite, as you had said earlier, is quite happy with it.
Comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, so, no, I think just about, I'd say 99% of the material hit the nail on the head. Can't complain.
I was quite intrigued to hear about the writing process for this season. Obviously, Ben Elton wasn't involved in season 1. Richard Curtis and Rowan Atkinson had done that one, and apparently it hadn't been the most productive writing environment trying to do it directly together. So in this one, Curtis and Elton would each write separately and then send their scripts to one another to rewrite, with the rule that you couldn't petition for a line to be kept in, and it seems to have worked okay.
I think that's fair to say, yeah. Okay, do you want to go over some production information and wrap up any trivia we might have?
Why not?
Bells was first broadcast on the BBC on the 9th of January 1986. As you mentioned there, written by Richard Curtis and Ben Elton. We'll come back to them in the future.
Okay.
Mandy Fletcher, she was a director. Born in 1954, this is her first of 13 Blackadder directions, including all of Blackadder II.
And I think most of Blackadder 3.
All of Blackadder 3.
All of Blackadder 3, yeah.
She also directed 4 episodes of Only Fools and Horses, Brushstrokes, Desmond's, Jam in Jerusalem, Absolutely Fabulous, a few episodes of the TV show. She directed the Absolutely Fabulous movie, also directed Stella and Blandings, a couple of recent shows. In terms of the stars, what we'll do is we will drip feed some of the
big
stars,
names.
the big names, yeah. So let's have a look at Tim McInerney, who played Lord Percy. He was born in 1956. Recently, he has been in Game of Thrones, Houdini and Doyle, Sherlock, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, one of my favourite. He was in the Red-Headed League. New Tricks, Doctor Who, Spooks, Casualty, The Bill, and he has a sister, actress Lizzie McInerney.
Okay.
And he is one of only 3 actors to appear in all 4 Blackadder seasons.
Although I did read somewhere that he grew tired of Percy's dim-wittedness and didn't enjoy the character after a while.
Yeah, we can chat more about that in the future.
Sure.
Gabrielle Glaister played Kate, or Bob.
And Bob.
Born in 1960, she is known for Brookside, Family Affairs, Sherlock, Doctors, New Tricks, Casualty, The Bill, and All at Number 20.
I think we can just pre-record you saying Casualty, The Bill, and Doctor Who, and play that for everybody.
Or perhaps I will just point out the actors who have not been in The Bill or Casualty.
Yeah. I think Gabrielle Glaser was a childhood friend of Ben Elton's.
She was indeed, and she reappears in Blackadder Goes Forth. Rick Mayall played Lord Flashheart. Now, he sadly died in 2014, aged just 56. He is a British comedy legend, part of the alternative comedy movement of the early 80s. This is his first appearance as Flashheart. He has also starred in Kevin Turvey, The Comic Strip Presents, The Young Ones, The New Statesman, Bottom, and The Bill. He also starred in 2 episodes of our other podcast, Jonathan Creek.
Well, that's to follow, isn't it?
He's got a very unique and very recognisable...
Manic sort of style, yeah.
Yeah.
He's another contemporary of Ben Elton's. They were at university together a couple of years apart.
That's what I'm saying, they were part of the alternative comedy movement.
And apparently it was him that brought Elton in on The Young Ones, and he was still quite young for a comedy writer at that point.
Sure. Edward Dewsbury played Kate's father. He died in 2001, aged 83. Known for Dungeons and Dragons, Crown Court, Much Ado About Nothing, The 10th Kingdom, Casualty, Sexton Blake, and Swizzlewick.
I thought you were going to say The Bill.
Unfortunately not. Sadie Shimon played the young crone. She has been in Coronation Street, EastEnders, Mr. Selfridge, Holby City, Wallander, The Bill, Casualty, and Doctors. In terms of trivia, you've covered quite a lot. Lord Percy is the heir to the Duchy of Northumberland, and a real person named Percy first held that title in 1776.
That's after this.
Yes.
Okay.
You did mention earlier that the plot is loosely based on Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Kiss Me Kate was a film based on a Cole Porter musical inspired by Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. And the courting scenes are the only outside scenes in the entire season. They were filmed at Wilton House in Wiltshire.
Yeah, that includes the closing credits. Apparently there was a bit of extra work done on the one with the CD or the music titles, but apart from that work, each of these episodes that's a half hour long was filmed and done in 2 hours.
Really?
Apparently.
Fantastic. Favourite line this week, Ian?
Yes, it was from right at the start. I think we put it on one of the clips. It was the bit when Kate says to her father, "It is better to die poor than to live in shame and ignominy," and he says, "No, it isn't." It's a very Monty Python sort of line.
Very. Certainly the delivery of it.
Yeah.
I think I will go for "Here is a purse of monies," which I'm not going to give to you.
Oh, Flashheart doesn't get into the favourite line section. Ah, it's a shame for him. There you go.
Next time, which will be in 2 weeks, we have Head.
Head. What's that about?
Oh, you'll have to wait and see.
Okay. We should say to folk, we need your help to spread the word about this podcast. Please do tell all your interested friends and family, but also go on to Apple Podcasts or iTunes if you're on a computer and subscribe, rate and review the show, even if it's not your primary method for listening to podcasts, because that helps more folk find us. You can get us on any podcast network or app, and you can talk to us on social media.
Yeah, come and have a chat.
We're at Blackadder Pod on both Twitter and Facebook.
We are indeed.
And you can go to blackadderpodcast.com. There'll be a post up for each episode where you can chat about that episode or anything arising from the podcast at your leisure.
Come in there, correct us, pull us up, offer us new trivia, more
We
trivia.
love extra trivia.
Yeah. Ian loves to be corrected.
Always. It happens to be
Daily.
necessary on a regular basis, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's us. We shall see you in 2 weeks' time.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.